I'll call on you. I will. Or I'll call on you guys. Oh, we'll have questions at the end. I want to just, keep your questions.
You want me to jump on that?
Yeah, Alan. What's a Pilsner?
So Pilsner beer is ubiquitous. It's all around us. It's like water and air. And it's wonderful to have that situation. 1842 in the Czech Republic, in the town of Pilsen, the Bavarian brewmaster was brought into town to help fix the quality of the beer that was being brewed there because it was so bad. He started bringing in lighter, try to brew darker beer styles like he had been doing in Munich, but they weren't working very well. So he ended up trying out some different malts, and he ended up using some of the lighter malts that were available. And those worked better with the water that they had in Pilsner, which is very soft water. So if you have very soft water, lighter malts work better. If you have very dark malts and hard water, those work well together. Just real simple there. The reason that I'll just jump into, I guess we can say, I'll say what a Pilsner is first, and I'll say why I think it became very popular. A Pilsner is a light colored beer, either straw green to a light gold, not really dipping into orange, but definitely the gold into straw color. The hopping can be anywhere from, modern standards, anywhere from 10 BUs to 45 BUs. The original Pilsner was somewhere in the 40 to 50 range. They used Moravian malts that were grown in the area around Pilsen, and they used Saaz hops that were also grown in the region around them. So they had very soft water. They triple decocted their beers, ending up with a very rich, creamy, sweet, flavorful Pilsner, and it became very popular very quickly. To the reason,
it rules the world.
Well, and now it rules the world.
Rules the world.
So part of the reason why it became very popular is because at the same period of time, the Moravian region around where Pilsen is close to them, they made a lot of glassware and crystalware. And as it became very inexpensive, people could actually pick up a glass and finally see what was inside of it. So instead of having foam on top of a tankard or a pewter glass or a stoneware, they would look through the glassware and see their beer. So as I look out there, I see the beautiful golden glasses that look like jewelry from my perspective up here. So having glassware you can look at, having the ability to make lighter malts, which was all part of the Industrial Revolution. We had indirect kilning, we had refrigeration, we had inexpensive glassware, we had the ability to transport beer longer distances. This golden, refreshing, light, crisp beer became popular through Central Europe, then Western Europe, and then America, England, even was taken over with Pilsners. Africa, Asia, Australia, it's all around the world now. And those are part of the main reasons why.
Thank you, Alan. How many different kinds of Pilsners do you think are out there? And maybe this can guide us into our first, your top left beer. It's the Pelican Pelicano. Does anyone want to talk about this beer and where it sort of lands in the styles Pilsner spectrum?
Sure. I think from a brewer's point of view, I'd argue that there are kind of 5 or 6 worldwide and kind of broad interpretations of Pilsner right now. One being brewed in the very kind of traditional Bohemian tradition that Alan was describing a moment ago. Though even within that, pale lagers across the Czech Republic, there's a huge range of diversity and a lot of kind of only really one beer in the Czech Republic would be called truly a Pilsner. Most of them would be called pale lagers, but they are kind of nationally or internationally categorized in that way as Bohemian Pilsners. You have more traditional German Pilsners, which tend to be a little bit lower alcohol, a little bit higher perceived bitterness, a little bit less rich, intense malt character. And as Alan said, the range from kind of delicate to quite intensely bitter. There's what beer number 1 is, we kind of fall into this broad category of American or international style Pilsners, which often are brewed with non-barley adjuncts, such as corn or rice. So pre-Prohibition style Pilsners, including Budweiser and the original American, kind of German-American lagers that used 6-row barley grown in the United States and corn or rice. This is Pelican's Pelicano, so it's kind of I think, knowing Darren Welch is the brewmaster at Pelican, I think this is kind of his interpretation of Pacifico, because I know he really likes Pacifico. It's basically that beer, but brewed in Pacific City in Tillamook.
Lisa wants tacos when she has this beer.
And then I think there are two more contemporary, less well-defined styles that you might call kind of nouveau Pilsners. One being these very hop-forward, aromatic Pilsners that you see more in the United States these days. So Pivo Pils, we'll taste later from Firestone Walker, is maybe the most kind of well-known example of that. Pilsners that are either dry hop, but they really push hop aroma as well as hop bitterness. Still oftentimes in the more classic noble European aromatics, but going that direction. And the last one, which I don't think we have the examples of on the table today, but if you travel to the Southern Hemisphere, there's a lot of what people call New Zealand-style Pilsners or Australian-style Pilsners that are being brewed, where they're using these very aromatic Southern Hemisphere-grown hops to create more of kind of like an India Pale Lager, but they call them Pilsners down there. So that's, I'd give them some credit on that style.
So Pelican Pelicano is made with corn. What does that do for you guys when you're tasting the beer? Can you talk about sort of the profile of this beer?
I think for me, whenever I can kind of tell when corn is used in a brew, I get like a little bit of this sweetness that I don't usually get from a 100% barley beer, and I definitely get that in this one. There's also, I mean, if you smell the Pelicano compared to the other three beers, there's definitely a different aroma going on. It's super light. You don't get much hop aroma at all, and that, I mean, that again has nothing really to do with the corn in it, but just to show the different styles and how that is played out in the kind of this Mexican or international style lager compared to the other three beers that are here right now.
Yeah, this is definitely the lightest beer we're going to have today, so it's the far end. All right, let's talk about beer number 2. This is your beer, break size.
May I say a couple things about number 1 that I think?
Of course.
Before I talk about 2.
Do.
So, I think that one of the most interesting things about these pre-prohibition style Pilsners and US style Pilsners is the kind of genesis of like why they came to be brewed that way, which is that you look at a region where in the upper Midwest, where kind of German breweries originated in the United States during the 1840s and 50s. That land, because its soil is relatively high in nitrogen, creates barley or favors barley that's very high in protein content, and particularly 6-row barley. European barley is a 2-row barley. That extra protein in the 6-row barley creates a much heavier mouthfeel. Anytime you have protein in beer, it's going to create a sense of depth and weight on the palate. And German immigrant brewers felt they were unable to replicate the light, crisp beers of Germany throughout the second half of the 19th century by using 6-row barley on its own. But what eventually became realized was the ability to kind of take advantage of the additional enzymes that were available in that 6-row barley to the Unipiper.
I don't know what's going on right now, but I like it.
Darth Vader mask on a unicycle.
Oh, it's the Unipiper. He should come over and have a beer.
The history of cereal cooking and brewing does not hold a candle to the Unipiper. Everyone.
Sorry, Ben. You're overshadowed. There he goes. Should we just pause and listen to the Unipiper for a minute? We're in Portland, everybody. Here we are.
Got the
He's good.
So that extra enzyme capability in those extra enzymes, the diacetic powers called technically in 6-row barley, allowed basically brewers to use other lower protein adjuncts like rice and corn in the brewing process to provide more sugar and offset protein content. And so the goal originally in using corn and rice was not to cheapen beer by using a different grain rice, but actually to imitate European-style lagers. At some point in the 20th century, that becomes kind of viewed as at least in certain circles, as a negative and kind of a detriment to certain beers. But the use of flaked corn, flaked rice, and non-barley adjuncts in lager brewing dates back in the United States. It's a very rich history in the United States, and it was out of originally very noble intentions on the part of immigrant brewers to recreate what they had been brewing in the old world.
And that sounds very German, to correct something and make it better.
Yeah.
I think the backlash came to the point where we overcorrected it and used much, much more adjuncts. Went from maybe 20% to 70%. At that point, the beer became very thin, comparatively speaking. And then the craft beers came out in the 80s and 90s and said, well, we're not going to make a very thin beer. We use 100% barley beer. You're going to recreate that feel of two-row barley, rounder but not overwhelmingly thick and sticky on the tongue from the high protein content.
And Alan, was that choice to use 70%? Was that for cost reasons, or was that for flavor profile?
I think both. After World War II, when all of the wonderful people who were out across the Pacific and Atlantic fighting came back, and the taste had changed slightly, and things were slightly lightened up. And I think that was a flavor request from the consumer. And then I think also the price was a little bit cheaper. Now we know that using corn and rice and those things is not less expensive for us. So it actually costs us more money frequently to put these ingredients into the beer. So it's kind of a misnomer to think that an adjunct is necessarily a bad thing.
There was kind of also a shift in American taste, kind of as the temperance movement came about for lighter, lower alcohol beers, and then moving into Prohibition. After that, with World War II, there was a lot of grain shortages because a lot of things needed to cut back, and any beer that was being shipped abroad needed to be lowered alcohol for the sake of troops functioning properly. So essentially you had an entire generation that's tastes were geared towards lighter alcohol and lighter body beer.
All right, I'd like to move on to number 2, Breakside's Pilsner.
Yeah.
Where did this beer come from, Ben? Tell us how it came to be.
Breakside Pilsner is one of our year-round brands. It's a beer we make quite a bit of, and when we expanded into our current production brewery, Jacob Leonard, who's our director of brewing operations, and myself, were really committed to making a year-round Pilsner and adding that to our repertoire. And actually, for the first couple of years we were open as a production brewery distributing, this was our top-selling beer more so than our hoppy beers. It still sells really well and love making it. We'll actually be coming out in 6-packs in the near future. Bottles, though.
It's okay.
So I would classify this beer as kind of fitting hybrid, kind of being a hybrid between a classic German Pils and some of the more aromatic American Pilsners that are being brewed now in the kind of spirit of German Pilsners. This beer is not dry hopped, but we do use kind of a more aggressive and American-style hop schedule on this beer. So in the aroma, I think you'll get a lot of kind of noble characteristics in that grass and herbaceousness and spice, but also some floral notes. Alan pointed out there's kind of a lavender-like note. I often get a little bit of a citric kind of lemon character to it. And that's from the use of a mix of European hops grown in Germany in the Hallertau, as well as some hops grown here in Oregon. And it's otherwise a pretty straightforward beer. It uses 100% German malted barley.
I'm so curious why you decided to have this be a year-round beer. I mean, just the demand was so high and you knew people would drink it.
I don't think we made very many decisions with too much forethought when we opened the production brewery. But no, it's not like we had a crystal ball by any means. I mean, this was. I'd always argue that we've been a brewer-driven brewery, and in terms of the styles we produce to this day, even as a medium-large brewery in the state, the brewers are the ones who decide what the upcoming year's brand availability calendar will be and what we put out there. And so we loved Pilsner. We felt it was underrepresented. We wanted to brew it. We thought it would be delicious.
I'm always curious, is the consumers driving you know, the emerging beer styles or the brewers choose them. So
Well, if it hadn't sold, we would have stopped making it or made it in a smaller quantity. You know.
excellent. I love this beer. I love the aroma. You guys, there's snacks on the table. Have you seen the snacks? Don't ignore them. They're delicious. Beautiful pig salami, elephant house-made pickles, elephant delicatessen, which is right over here, and Face Rock Creamery fromage blanc. So don't ignore that element of the table. Anything else you guys want to talk about with the Bergstein beer? It's delicious. All right, let's move on to beer number 3. Peter Allen. Lisa, tell us about this recipe. Tell us about your beer.
So Pils, as we call it, is essentially what the brewery was founded on. When my dad decided to start a brewery in 2007, there were like little to no craft lagers on the market. And so he kind of just started on a super small batch and quickly realized that he was going to have to get a bigger system because there was so much demand for this style. So our version is more a Bohemian or Czech style Pilsner. We're lucky in McMinnville. Well, Portland in general has very soft water. In McMinnville, we have incredibly soft water. And we brew with 100% Czech malt, as well as not quite 100% Saaz hops, but almost.
Why not 100%?
Saaz is very, very low in hop bitterness, so we add a little bit. We actually use a little bit of Horizon hops in this, just to get it a little bit more of that bitterness to style. Unfiltered, obviously. It's cloudy. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's really, it's been interesting to see the beer, I think, go from this, like, essentially because of this beer, we've been able to, like, get larger and expand, and I mean, even this is 90% of what I'm brewing at the brewery, and sometimes I get really tired of it, and then I drink it, and I'm just like, okay, I know why.
It's still
like,
good.
it's still good.
So did your dad make the recipe? I know he brewed a lot of Pilsners as a home brewer.
Yeah, I would say, so this is the one recipe I would say I don't really have a say in at all.
Don't mess with it.
Yeah, we will slightly alter it based on the season's hops and the batch of barley that we get, but for the most part, it has stayed the same since we brewed it, or since he first came up with the recipe. Yeah, everything else we really collaborate on. This is the one beer
Don't mess with perfection. There you
yeah,
go.
exactly.
That makes sense to me. It's a wonderful beer.
Lisa, do you guys do the step mash pills? Is it a single
Oh, yeah.
infusion?
We do, so this is a step mash. We use what is referred to as under modified malt. So we have to kind of start it at different temperatures to kind of take advantage of all of the sugars in the barley that we can. So we do 3 steps, which is different than a lot of breweries do an infusion mash, which you go in at a single temperature. And so we actually have, where most breweries in Portland have a 3-vessel system, and their 3rd vessel that they're talking about is their hop back. We have a 3-vessel system, and that's because we have a mash mixer, a lauter tun, and our boil kettle. So it's a little bit different than a lot of the breweries in Portland.
Does that increase the time that you spend brewing? I mean, does that really make the process longer?
Yeah, it does. I mean, because our step mash, that adds probably about I would say at least an hour to a typical brew day, an hour to an hour and a half from what you would usually do.
A little more labor involved.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not as much. We used to stir by hand, and we have a mash mixer actually now, so we don't have to stir by hand anymore, which is really nice.
Now you have to go to the gym and lift weights.
I know. Yeah, no, I actually have to like work out, but
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
This is actually something I want to ask for those of you that do brewing. So a proper Pilsner is incredibly labor intensive. You have a multiple step mash process, you have a longer fermentation, you have a boil, you have to allow for conditioning, so it takes up time, it takes up space, it takes up labor. And when you go ahead and release your Pilsner, at the end of the day, you are competing with the macro breweries who are able to price, their Pilsners significantly lower because of the adjuncts that they allow, the systems that they have, the consistency that they can promise. And craft Pilsners have increased in sales dramatically. I think the Brewers Association put out from 2013 to 2016, their sales have tripled. So do you all see a challenge as far as pricing goes when you're kind of going up against the macro brewers, or are you producing a product that is so different that you find that people don't, is it affected, or are you producing it at a loss?
I think we're, it's funny, so we self-distribute, so we're in this spot where you are looking at, you don't want to price your product too high because people are still like, oh, this is a Pilsner. You don't want to price it too high so that you are pricing yourself out of the market, but at the same time, you do want to price it high enough so people, kind of think of it, oh, this is a special product, because it is more labor intensive, and it does take more time and all of that. And so it has been kind of, I think, interesting to see like how the market goes. And I mean, and it's ever changing too. I think that we're lucky to be in Portland, which is, or just outside of Portland, a city that, cares about craft beer, and is willing to maybe pay a little bit more for a keg. And I mean, we're lucky we have a bunch of our accounts, really truly love the beer, and they're willing to even maybe pay a little bit higher price for that product.